Hey everyone, Todd Schutte here with the Bona e-learning team. Special guest star today here from our adhesive sales team, Trey Harrison. Trey, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
My name's Trey Harrison. I'm a senior adhesive manager for the Rocky Mountain region. Cover everything basically in the middle of the country.
We're here today to talk about moisture mitigation, a really important subject topic for contractors, even obviously down to your homeowners, but it's really about being a professional and making sure, whether it's on concrete or OSB, plywood, Advantech, that you guys are taking the right precautions, taking measurements, making your documentation. Because look, we're always going to have, with wood floors, there's always going to be water, right? And the reaction between those two is always going to be the same. So to understand really what's going on with moisture mitigation, what we're trying to prevent or minimize, why it's important to you, why it's important to your customer, why it's really important for the wood floor, is just key to, one, protecting your business, your reputation, and your profits. So we've got some questions we're going to run through with Trey, just on moisture mitigation and why it's important. We're going to have Wayne Highlander come on, who's our national adhesive sales manager. He's going to go through a little bit more theory, some of the stuff behind the scenes with moisture mitigation. We'll have some demo videos on the correct way to use the Bona systems. Then we'll come back for some live Q&A. But let's start out first with some questions to Trey. So the first question I have for you is, again, moisture mitigation, why is it important?
The biggest thing with moisture mitigation is you want to protect yourself because there's a lot of liability in moisture. You want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence to take care of that floor for moisture issues you might have now and potential moisture issues down the line. You know, the average cost of a tear out and reinstall from a failed moisture, from a moisture claim is 7 times the cost of the original floor. It's a lot of money, you know. Think about how many jobs you would have to do if your margin's 25% or whatever it is. Think about how many jobs you would have to do for free just to repay that. And that also doesn't even include, you know, the potential jobs that you're going to lose. While you're back here trying to fix this first one, now your schedule's all messed up and you're losing other jobs down the line. So it's really, moisture mitigation is just a way to protect yourself, protect your business, and protect your customers.
Yeah, and also your credibility, right? Whenever you do a glue down job and then you have it blow up and it's usually a full tear out, you know, that's a blow to your credibility, to your professionalism, word of mouth. Even if you handle it the right way, it's such an intrusion on your customer's life, the beautiful floor that you probably just put in, that a lot of times it's hard. It takes a long time of, again, extra goodwill to get over that. So how about then also with, you know, when we're doing moisture mitigation on concrete, what are you looking for? What are we trying to prevent or minimize?
So with concrete, you know, we want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence, which is testing. You know, the National Wood Flooring Association only says that there are 2 tests that they recognize as moisture tests. That's a calcium chloride and a relative humidity test. Now, I know a lot of guys have the pinless meters, the Tramex or the Wagners or any of those that, you know, that'll give you kind of an idea, but those aren't recognized as actual moisture tests. So when you take a moisture test, yes, that's a snapshot in time. That's what's going on that day. Take that test and you record it. Now, if you ever get into a litigation situation, you have the results, and you show that you did your due diligence before you put that floor in. It's also a great way for you to upsell a customer. It's a great way for you to add some credibility to your company as, I'm going to do something extra. I'm going to go above and beyond. I'm going to give you the moisture protection that you need for not just now, but for the future of that floor, for as long as they have it.
Like Trey said, it's that credibility, professionalism, and gaining that trust from your customer and that opportunity. If I'm working on a concrete slab and it measured out at 75% RH, right, pretty dry. However, as the professional and knowing how that can change over time, right, that's a great opportunity then for you to go ahead, educate your customer on, look, this is only what it's at right now. A month from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, we could have, you know, a hurricane blow in or just an extraordinary water event that then forces more moisture up through that slab. Now it's up to 95%. That's the protection system I want to put down. I don't want to just protect you to 75% because I know that it could get up to 95% overnight. So that's what I'd like to do for you, and this is the system that I'm presenting. So if I'm the homeowner, it's like, yeah, you sound like you're the guy that I want to go with.
One of the things I tell guys all the time is there's always somebody who's going to do it cheaper. There's always going to be somebody that's going to go lower. Sell yourself, sell your business, give them something extra that the guy down the street's not going to give them.
I don't understand why when you've got a customer, you know, in a high-end house or even medium-end house, drives a nice car, has a good job, you know, working hard for his money, really wants to put in a nice floor, why you wouldn't go to every level that you could to help them protect that floor. That is not the time to try to go cheap or to not, you know, take measurements, to not document things. Because again, you're the professional. If it ever comes down to litigation or arbitration or anything like that, one of the first questions they're going to ask you to prove is, what was the moisture content? Where's your documentation? What kind of instrumentation did you use? Where's your proof that that's where it was at when you actually installed the floor? And if you can't prove that, case is closed. You might as well get out the checkbook. So really important, like Trey said, to take all your measurements, follow the NWFA installation guidelines depending on what kind of substrate you're working on, what kind of instrument you're using to make those measurements, get everything documented. Let's go over to the other side on plywood, OSB, Advantech. How does Bona's moisture mitigation system work with that?
It's an amazing thing because one of the great parts about the 540 is it goes over either. We can do it on concrete, we can do it on plywood. Now a lot of people don't realize why you would ever put a moisture barrier on plywood, but the first one, and I think one of the biggest points is boards are getting wider. NWFA now recommends, Bona recommends, most wood manufacturers, even pre-finished manufacturers now, recommend a nail glue assist. Now before, when we were doing the red rosins or the 50-pound roofing felts, or people putting paper down, they've done it for years and years, and it's, it does okay, but now you can't do a nail glue assist with it. You're not going to glue straight on paper. Now with the 540, you can get a moisture barrier and you can do a nail glue assist at the same time, and it's the best of both worlds. Second part is that this 540 roll-on moisture barrier is going to cover you up to 20% moisture content in the wood substrate. The reason that's important is, and I think that probably a lot of you have been in this situation, you're going into a remodel or a new home, any kind of construction where there's other things going on, wood gets delivered 2 weeks early, perfect, you open it all up, let it acclimate, everything looks good. You're on the schedule for this certain day. You got your install crew there, the painters are waiting for you, the drywall or the electricians, everybody's waiting for your floor to get in so they can finish this house. You stick your pin you get there in the morning, you stick your pin in the wood, it's at 6%. Stick your pin in the OSB or the plywood and it's at 15%. Now you got a problem. There's only two solutions and neither of them are good, right? First solution is you can install the floor, cross your fingers, hope for the best, hope that it doesn't cup. Chances are with a floor that's that far out of balance, chances are you're gonna have a cupping issue. Other thing you can do is you can wait, do what you're supposed to do. That's what the recommendation would be, to wait. We live here in Colorado, really dry area. For a plywood or OSB subfloor to drop 9%, that's 2-3 weeks. So that's a long time to wait. Now you've screwed up the house, the schedule for everybody in there. Your schedule is screwed up because your install guys are there. They're all standing around trying to get paid. So now we offer you a solution. One coat of 540, you're ready to go. Now it negates that 2 or 4% threshold that the wood and the wood substrate need to be within.
Again, that new construction or the remodel where, let's say you did everything right and you even brought the wood in to acclimate for a month, right? And let's say you stuck the subfloor 2 weeks ago and it was fine, everything matched up. You were within your 2 or 4% tolerance. But now, like you said, now the drywall guys came in, or they're doing plaster on the walls, or they painted. They did something to introduce a lot more moisture and it went into the subfloor. Now, even though you did everything right, now when it comes time for you to install, now you're kind of screwed, except now you got an answer with R540.
Yeah, tile saws. I mean, I've never seen a tape and mud gun that doesn't pour water out everywhere, you know? So there's a lot of reasons that floor can, that OSB or plywood can get saturated. And it's, even if there's reasons, it doesn't mean you're gonna have a successful install.
Cool, so we covered concrete, we got plywood, Advantech OSB covered. Is there any situation you can think of where you really wouldn't need to do moisture testing or think about moisture mitigation before you install a floor?
You know, I don't. There's no situation where you wouldn't moisture test. I go on a lot of job sites. I walk on a lot of floors, and I've seen all the guys who said, "Oh, I can smell it if it's wet," or "I can just kind of feel it in the air. I can touch it and I know," or "It's 17 years old." Blah blah blah. Seeing some of those is some of the highest readings out there. You know, concrete's a capillary action. Like, it's going to take on water and it's going to give off water for its entire life. So there's no real way to know if you have a moisture problem or not without testing.
So again, moisture mitigation and what you guys are thinking about out on your job sites, whether it's, you know, wooden subfloor, whether it's concrete slab, it's got to be key to what you think about on how to properly prepare that floor for the wood that you're going to put out on it. And if you don't, you know, the chances of having a problem either now, immediately, or later on just go up and up. You might as well take your whole paycheck for the year and go to Vegas and put it on, you know, even red or something, and just take a whirl with that if you're not going to think about moisture mitigation. So now we're going to go to Wayne Highlander. Again, he's going to take us through a little more theory and you know, details behind the scenes of moisture mitigation. We'll see some demo videos. We're going to hear from a customer or two about them making that switch and really making this a key part of their business. Then we'll come back for some live Q&A with Trey and myself. So let's head over to Wayne.
Hi, I'm Wayne Highlander. I'm the National Sales Manager for Bona Adhesives. And talking about acclimation and of your hardwood floors, the first #1 rule to me for acclimation is that you first get the building ready for the flooring and then get the flooring ready for the building. It's the #1 rule of acclimation, #1. So you might say, well, hang on a second, Wayne. It's 2020. There's a lot of unlimited warranty claims out there, and there's all these other advances in technology. Why is moisture still a thing? It's interesting to note that in 2018, two of the largest commercial contractor companies in the business, which is Fuse Alliance and StarNet, they got together to discuss two of the biggest problems facing the industry. One of them is everybody on this call is probably facing the same one, which is a labor shortage, right? I mean, it's hard to find people. The second problem facing the industry that they came together to discuss is moisture issues on concrete slabs. So when you talk about acclimation and moisture mitigation, we can see how this is should be a very important part of your business. And unfortunately, when it comes to subfloor prep, it has been my experience that oftentimes it can kind of fall into a gray area, right? The general contractor says maybe he doesn't have it in the budget, or maybe he didn't do it up to your standards, and sometimes it kind of falls to the flooring contractor. And I've actually seen the general contractor, when you ask him to fix it, make it worse. Turns out there's a little bit more than just mixing up some Ardex and dumping it over. And I always think to myself, can you imagine if they approached hanging the doors or installing crown molding like they do subfloor prep? My uncle was a contractor for almost 56 years in this industry. And he would tell me that when he was bidding jobs, or when he was walking a job with the general contractor, and maybe they're talking about which direction the grain is going to go or what have you, he's making mental notes with his feet. He's feeling every single undulation in that slab, any high spot that might need to be grinded, any low spot that needs to be filled, and he'd make mental notes as he was walking around the job site. He told me, and I'm gonna do air quotes now, that's called a floor man's foot. He said, in time, I also would develop a floor man's foot. He said he was so good that if he stepped on a mosquito, he can tell me whether or not it was circumcised. Now, I don't know if I'll ever be that good. And truthfully, what we should have been doing is on your hands and knees with a straight edge, maybe a string line, and some crowns or spray paint, and marking on the floor to areas that we need to address. It's been my experience that 90% of the failures are related to one or two things: either excessive moisture in the subfloor or the subfloor not being flat. And be aware, when you want to dry out the slab, low relative humidity and air movement is the absolute best conditions to do that. You need something that's going to remove the moisture with a good hourly exchange rate, right? It's not enough to just get the HVAC up and running. After all, it really isn't designed to do that. Dehumidifiers work great. A lot of people will say, well, we brought in propane heaters. And I think most people know that propane heaters don't really solve the problem, because the byproduct of burning propane is H2O, which is exactly what we don't want. So why should we test? Testing is best practices. The NWFA will tell you the best practices to test. Industry guidelines are this is not a Bona guideline, this is an industry guideline. And there's a lot of reasons here on this slide, why should we test? You know, obviously to maintain manufacturer warranties and to reduce callbacks and these type of things. But honestly, to me, the most important bullet point is peace of mind. Running a business is difficult in the best of circumstances. Think of all the energy and the anxiety that nags at us that through our day-to-day business as it is. I mean, you've got employees and schedules and billing and you know, just distributor paying your bill, all these other, so many things going into running a business, that worrying about cupping and moisture issues is nice not to have to go through that, right? To have the peace of mind that, you know what, you've did your moisture mitigation, you've done your checks, you did your testing, and you know you're in good shape and you're good to go. Listen, I'm fat. This COVID did not help my cause, okay? I know I need to lose some weight. I know at some point I got to step on that scale. It's best to do that in the privacy of my own home than at the doctor's office when the nurse seems to want to say it as loudly as she can to the passerbyers. I'd rather make sure that I know the conditions are right rather than having a flooring inspector announce it to the world. So this slide shows a lot of different potential moisture causes. You know, some are natural and some are artificial. The scary thing about this slide to me is that most of these cannot be seen by the naked eye. I made a living by two rules I tried to never break. Number one, if my eyes don't see it, I don't believe it. In other words, how many times the homeowner told you, oh, it's a wall-to-wall carpet, underneath the carpet though, the floors are in great shape, only to find out that there's missing boards, urine stains, or maybe even a whole section that's just plywood instead of flooring. The other one is never rely on someone else telling me the conditions have been checked and I'm good to go. I did too much insurance work to only have the restoration company say, yeah, we just pulled our fans out of there, your job is good to go. Do my own testing and find out that it's nowhere near good to go. One thing that happened to me early on in my career before I became a floor contractor is I was a union laborer. Local 304, Hayward, California. Every day I got up, I either ran a 90-pound jackhammer or I placed concrete. And this would be a common scenario. So the laborers would get the job site ready for the carpenters. The carpenters would come in, they would build the forms for the concrete. We would put 6 mil plastic down, and then the iron workers would place their iron, right? They put the rebar on top of that. But if it had been raining, you know, up until the point that we were going to pour concrete, and you know, now it's concrete day, it would be very common for us to take stakes and poke holes in that visqueen to let the water run out. Now, this was not malicious. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing. We were just making our job easier. But worse than that is that if you've ever poured concrete in July or August, and you know the concrete truck shows up, they drop the chutes down the back of the truck, and now the concrete is coming slowly down those chutes. Well, it's heavy and it's thick and it's hard to shovel. So inevitably, one of us would jump up in the truck and take the water hose and start pouring water, squirting water into that mix. Now, the slurry's going around. It's a lot easier for us to move. We can shovel it so much easier. We just made our jobs a whole lot easier. The poor floor contractor that would come by behind us to do the floor, he would have no idea that this happened. We just made this concrete extremely porous. Now, it might have been spec, a certain water to cement ratio when it left the factory, but by the time we got done with it, it was nowhere near where it was supposed to be. Furthermore, have you ever gone to one of your job sites? Say it's like 2 weeks before you're going to actually do the job, and you're just coming by the job site to make sure things are good to go. And you walk in and you see the tile guy in the living room with his tile saw. And as he's cutting his tile, the water's going all over the place. I mean, making it, obviously bringing the moisture content in that subfloor way up. And then by the time you get there, he's gone. If you had not seen him do that, you would have no idea that this happened. There's a lot of things, like I said earlier, you want to put as many things on your side of the equation as you can. And that's moisture mitigation. Products like the R540 can when I talk about peace of mind, can add a whole lot to the peace of mind. Because my experience as a construction laborer, I approach every slab like there are contaminants on it and the moisture is too high. It needs to prove to me that it's not going to cause my project to fail. How do you know what's the right adhesive? Before, when I was a contractor, before I went to work for Bona, we had switched to Bona adhesives. And I know why I switched. I know what I liked about them. I know what my guys liked about them. But when I went to work for Bona and I became the adhesive sales manager, I had to know it on another level, and I had to know how it, how do we compare to some of the other products out there? And when I went on this journey, a lot of what I got was, I guess for lack of a better word, was like marketing jargon, like it holds really well, or it's really strong adhesive, or it's good with moisture. I've always said if I could bench press 400 pounds, I'd pretty much be able to work that into every conversation. But if I could only bench press 80 pounds, I'm probably not going to talk about it. We are very transparent with our specs. We want you to look at our specs versus the competitors. I think when you're considering adhesives, I think there are some things you have to consider with all of them across the board. I think you have to look at shear strength. Shear strength is what stops that floor when it wants to go into motion side to side when it's under pressure. When that moisture gets elevated, you want to make sure that you have a product that's strong enough to hold that flooring in place. I think you also have to look at tensile strength. Tensile strength is what stops the movement up and down. Now, I'm thinking of quarter-sawn floors or end grain blocks that want to expand and contract up and down. You want to have something that has really tenacious tensile strength. You also have to look at elongation. When I talk about elongation, if I can give you a visual here, just if you picture saltwater taffy, if you take saltwater taffy and you stretch it out and let go, and it just, it just doesn't come back. It doesn't snap back. You need to have a property in the adhesive that allows the floor to expand, maybe for seasonal movement, but also snap back. It has a strength so it's a combination of shear strength and elongation that allows that floor to move and hold it in place as well. I think you also have to look at permeability. Permeability is the property for allowing the passages of fluids and gases. Okay, we're talking about moisture mitigation, so moisture protection is important. By the way, we're seeing a lot more LVT products out there on job sites that are failing due to, we're seeing the same issues as flooring. We're seeing cupping. We're seeing edge curling. You're seeing a lot of actually mold and mildew issues. So when I talk about the 540, it's great in that application as well. Listen, we're placing more and more demands on wood floors, right? And the adhesives. We're going wider and wider. We're putting flooring in places we never did before. Construction practices have changed so fast, they're fast tracking these jobs, and we're closing up the buildings tighter than we ever have before, and we're trapping that moisture. So considering adhesives, I think you also have to, like I said, I think shear strength, tensile strength, elongation, permeability, and I'll throw in there sound and IIC and STC ratings too for guys working in condo environments or buildings that have the second floor or those type of scenarios where you really want good sound qualities. Anybody who's ever worked in an office building with poor sound quality, you learn to really appreciate the IIC and STC ratings, which we have very well. when we talk about products like R540, you know, I can tell you I was a contractor for around 30 years. And what I've come to realize is contractors rarely get optimum conditions. You know, and this is probably a pretty familiar scenario for a lot of people. Let's say you have the job scheduled for 3 weeks away, and you've been checking the moisture content. It's not where it needs to be, and you tell them that, you know, HVAC has to be on and all these different things, and you're acclimating the wood, but you know but that's your schedule. You know, your window of time is in 2 weeks. Homeowner's going away. She can't wait to come back and see your beautiful floors. The other trades are coming behind you. You've got jobs on the calendar that are going after this one. So your time period is now. This is go time. So when you're left with two choices, one is you can lay the job and roll the dice and hope that it doesn't cup, and you get that call down the road, or you can delay the job. And we talked about labor shortages right now, and I lived in the real world too. I know what that's like when you have to delay a job like that. I just want to take a minute too and talk about trowels. I used to be an inspector for the Contractor State License Board, and you know, to me, all a trowel is a measuring device, and it's the critical link between the floor contractor, the flooring, and the subfloor. Using the proper trowel is critical. I mean, every manufacturer in the industry has certain trowels that they want you to use for certain spread rates. So using the proper trowel, and just as importantly, getting the proper spread rate out of that trowel is absolutely essential to a proper job for a lot of reasons. For moisture protection, for hollow spots and those type of things. For a successful installation, you really do want to use the proper trowel. And for that reason, in our adhesive now, the R851 and the R859, we put 2 trowels inside every pail. You know, we didn't used to have all this technology that we have today. The adhesive has gotten better. The testing has gotten better. You know, we didn't have, you know, the qualitative testing and quantitative testing, you know, from years ago. The RH tests are fabulous tests. And by the way, they're used to take 72 hours. Now you can get the results back in 24 hours. So having this technology available to us to make our jobs easier, using moisture mitigation products like the R540 should absolutely be a part of your business. I just want to take a minute. Thank you guys for being on the call. I know everybody has a lot going on these days, and you know, for some people, our window of time for making money has been shortened because of COVID-19. And really want to thank you very kindly for using our products and being part of the webinar.
So now we've heard a little bit more from Wayne on, you know, kind of the theory and some of the facts and figures behind moisture mitigation. Now let's take a look at, again, the Bona products, trowels, adhesive, and then what your measured moisture levels will help you pick out the system that's needed to properly protect or provide the right moisture mitigation for the situation that you're working in. So it's going to depend on a couple things. One is the type and width of flooring, so whether solid or engineered, and then how wide it is. That's going to help you pick out your trowel. And then also what level of moisture content, from 3 pounds being our minimum, 18 pounds or 95% RH being our top end. So first, let's just look at the trowel choice based on the type and width of flooring. So the smallest trowel is going to be our engineered trowel. That any engineered flooring up to 7 inches in width and 3/4 inch solid, and we're going to get about 70 to 75 square feet in coverage with R851, R859 with that product. Then we move up to 1250G, which covers us up to a 5-inch wide solid, 8-inch wide engineered, again up to 3/4 inch thick, and we get about 50 or 60 square feet of coverage with that trowel. 1500G, 9-inch solid or up to 16-inch wide engineered. Our coverage dropped down just a little bit to 50 to 55 square feet per gallon. And then jumping from 1500G up to our moisture barrier protection trowel, that's going to give us the most protection that we're going to get, up to 18 pounds, 95% RH, and we'll get 30 to 35 square feet per gallon when we're applying with that. So now let's look at, again, what what were our moisture measurements? At 3 pounds and 75% RH, that's where the NWFA says is a minimum where I need to start instituting an impermeable moisture barrier. And really, anytime we're gluing down a floor, right, especially on slab, we know we're gonna have moisture coming through that floor at all times, whether it's, you know, below this 3 pounds or whether it's up to 18 pounds where I've got running water coming through. It is a permeable product, so you know that moisture moves in and out of there at will. So at 3 pounds, 75% RH, that anyway is what the NWFA says is a minimum. The good news is that using Bona products, we're gonna take you up a step further right out of the gate to 80% RH or 6 pounds with our engineered trowel. Again, which is gonna apply product at about 70, let's say 70 square feet per gallon. All right, and that's for engineered up to 7 inches wide. And we've got that full protection needed for most of the engineered floors that are out there. If you need to step it up a little bit, so if our moisture readings read, you know, 12 pounds or greater than 6 but less than 12, then we can also move up to this next level of protection in 2 different ways. And that takes us up to 85% RH on our moisture probes. And that's using the 1250 trowel or the 1500 trowel, depending on what wood we're using, engineered or solid, and how wide it is. So again, with the 1250, we can go up to 5-inch wide solid, 8-inch wide engineered, or with the 1500, 9-inch solid or 16-inch engineered. And we're gonna get about 60 square feet per gallon with the 1250 and about 55 square feet per gallon with our 1500. And again, that takes us up to 12 pounds calcium chloride or 85% RH. To move up one more level to 15 pounds or 90% RH, what we simply need to do is just back trowel with either the 1250G or 1500. And that simply means, pretty simple, when we're applying the product, we're gonna use the flat backside of our trowel first to basically create a skim coat over the surface. What that's gonna do is fill in any of those little nooks, crannies, microscopic areas. Then we can flip the trowel over, use our regular notched area, putting our regular notches and ridges on top of that. That's gonna move us from 12 pounds up to 15 pounds using either of those trowels. And it takes a little more product, so that may move us to 50 square feet per gallon with the 1250 and down to about 45 square feet per gallon with the 1500. And then to move up to the top level, if you've already got a little bit of a moisture or high moisture readings in that floor, so up to 18 pounds or 95% RH, a couple different ways we can protect against that. One is with the moisture barrier protection trowel. And again, we're going to get about 30 to 35 square feet per gallon with that trowel. Again, the 1250 and the moisture barrier protection trowel. A clip-on is included in each pail of R851 or R859. Moisture barrier protection trowel has a little nib on top of it that spaces out. Basically what that's doing is it's providing a deeper back trowel or more of a skim coat along with your regular notched ridges and stuff while you're applying it. So it does it all at once. But again, as you can see, we've got a pretty thick layer going down there. Now some guys may not like working with that much adhesive, but if you've got that level of a moisture problem already, you've got to deal with it one way or another. So this is one way. But if you find that that's too much adhesive, the boards move around on you too much, you guys are having a problem squeezing stuff up between the boards, there's one more way where we can get up to 18 pounds and 95% RH. And that's going to be doing one coat of R540 and then using R851 or 859 with, again, the 1250 or 1500 trowel, depending on what width and style of product that you're working with, solid or engineered. And you've got 16 hours dry time on this, and then you can apply your adhesive over that and install. That system too will take you up to 18 pounds and 95% RH. Another thing I like about this is, at least by putting the R540 down, I know I'm not missing anything. Even though with this amount of adhesive out with the moisture barrier protection trowel, I got a lot of adhesive out there when we're laying our boards and stuff down in there. I think you're gonna have full coverage without a doubt. But I like laying that R540 down as well. At least there I know I've got that full protection across the whole floor. And then I still want to ensure that I use the trowel the right way when I'm putting down the 851 or 859 with either the 1250 or 1500 trowel to still ensure that I have 100% coverage. All right? So, again, don't make it harder than it has to be, but I think knowing this, and then how do you discuss it with your customer, right? They may be only measuring 6 pounds, but depending on the history of that house, the history of the neighborhood, you just knowing your area, you being the professional, you may want to suggest that, hey, even though we're measuring here, I want to take you up to at least 12 pounds or 15 pounds, or I'm always gonna put R540 down and then put my adhesive over the top. That's gonna move you up to a higher level, just because I don't wanna protect you against just the here and now, but also against future events that may happen, okay? But knowing at least where your minimums are, what wood you're working with, the trowel selection from there, and then how to pair that up with the different moisture levels is key in understanding what kind of moisture mitigation system do I need to work into each and every one of my jobs. All right, so keep in mind we're on concrete, right, with our moisture mitigation practice, and we know that to choose the trowel based on the type and width of the flooring that we're using, and then matching that up with the desired level of protection is how we institute our moisture mitigation. A real key on this is your coverage levels, because that is the amount of product that we're putting on the floor. The thicker it is, generally the better protection, right, we're gonna get. So you've gotta hit those levels. If I'm supposed to be at 50 square feet per gallon to get 15 pounds, but I'm at 70 square feet, I'm only gonna get 6 pounds, right? It doesn't matter if I use the 1250. If I'm only at 70 feet, I just drop myself down to 6 pounds. So there's 4 key ways that you're going to miss those coverage rates. The first is going to be floating your trowel during application. And what that simply means is I'm not using it in a 90 degree or as close to a 90 degree as possible, right? With these notches, that's my delivery system. So if I'm using it in an upright position, I've got the right width and height of those ridges, and I've got the right amount of product going down. If I'm cranking that thing over and or not putting pressure on this and I'm just kind of floating it across the floor, you can see where now I went with a ridge that was supposed to be this high, now I went down to about 50 or 25% of what that ridge should be, and I just dropped my coverage from 50, or I upped my coverage, but I dropped my moisture protection from 50 square feet to 70 square feet. Now I might be in trouble. The second way to miss your coverage rate is the floor isn't flat, all right? You've got to do a good job in prepping that surface. NWFA says 3/16 of an inch in 10 feet. And so if my floor is not flat and I'm going across that, I'm going to be missing a lot of areas or putting it down heavy in one area, real thin in one area. So my floor's got to be flat. Third way is I've got a difficult concrete surface to work on. So it's really porous, meaning I've got a lot of little microfractures, a lot of missed aggregate, a lot of areas that adhesive is going down into. That's given me a good seal in those little areas, but it's not giving me enough up on the surface to form that continuous film that I need. So understand how to kind of read your concrete and the surface that you've got available, and just do your calculations during your application too. How many square feet do we have? How many buckets did it take? What was our coverage rate? And was there anything that might have caused us to get less coverage than we need? There is a fourth one as well, and that's using a a worn out trowel. And what happens there is guys, they see this trowel, the 1500, and they use it for one job with one bucket, and they just keep moving from bucket to bucket. It still seems fine, they can still see the notches, but again, understand that as I'm using this across concrete, it's scraping all the flat area down, so I'm getting a smaller and smaller notch, and I'm increasing that area between my notches as I go. That's why in every bucket of 851 and 859, we include a 1250G trowel and an MBP trowel, because those are going to be the two that people typically use the most. So change out your trowel every bucket. If not, you may be missing those coverage rates, and then that's going to cause you to have a problem later on. All right, so moisture mitigation system. How do I choose my trowel? How do I make sure I get the proper coverage? That's the things we want to make sure we've got to ensure ourselves and our customer that we're doing the right thing for them. So now we're looking at moisture mitigation on plywood, OSB, Advantech, anything other than concrete. That's going to be R540, so think of it as taking the place of your asphalt paper or red rosin or whatever you might have been using before. So we've got one coat to go down on the top of whatever our subfloor is there. And then if we're simply nailing, we've got 1 to 2 hour dry time, or as soon as it's dry to the touch, we can start nailing over that floor right away. Or if we're doing a nail with glue assist, you've got a little bit of dry time there, a minimum of 4 hours before I start with 880. Or if I want to use 850T, I've got 16 hours. So what I might do there is give it 4 hours dry and then start that first day with 880 on my nail glue assist. And then the next day, once I've got that 16 hours of dry time, I can use 850T and go on from there. But pretty simple, again, one coat. I can start nailing right away in a couple hours, or if I'm going to nail glue assist, I may have 4 to 16 hours dry time before I can start using those products on top of the R540. All right, but that's moisture mitigation and substituting your asphalt paper or red rosin paper with R540. All right, now we want to cut over to one of our BCCPs and hear how they're using the Bona moisture mitigation system in their business.
I went through the Craftsman program without this being available. So I was a little slow, maybe even hesitant to use it because I didn't get it in the training program. So maybe I was a little slower to start using it, but once I started using it, it's kind of no looking back on a product like that. Because once you use it and you see the results, it's hard to not offer it to your customers, and it's hard to even offer it as an option. It's at this point in my business, I'm not really having it as an option anymore, especially on new construction. In this area, and I would imagine in general, new construction, the subfloors, they get wet during construction. It's almost impossible for them not to get wet, no matter how good the builder is. I've seen every single house we've worked on. I go there during the construction process. I have pictures of the floors being saturated. And sometimes it's worse than others. Sometimes they get lucky and it just doesn't happen to rain during the period. It's not closed up, but those subfloors get wet. And the time frames that are allowed for construction these days, how tight they are, they weren't giving enough time for new construction subfloors to dry. And it was a problem around here. And I imagine it was a problem in most areas. And that's where I saw the most failures. That's where I always saw floors that were cupped. Even 3 1/4 floors, they would cup, right after they were sanded, and it just doesn't look good. Customers don't like cup floors, and so we would instruct the customers to wait. Sometimes we were waiting up to 2 months at times, and I was waiting and testing where other companies were just installing them and having problems. And when this product came available to us, I was obviously a little hesitant because it's almost too good to be true. You can install up to 14% moisture content. It's almost sounds too good to be true, right? And my experience with it was that one of my first times using it was I used it on a house where I had used it on the first floor, and I did not use it on the second floor of a new construction. It was about saving cost, and it was a raised home. So you think, oh, it's a raised home. It doesn't have a crawl space. It doesn't have a basement. Should be dry as can be, right? but that's still not what's happening with new construction. The subfloors are still getting wet and they're still drying after the floor is installed. And this product allowed us to install the floors much sooner than we were otherwise, and with much better results without the floors having any gapping or cupping while the floors were after they were installed, but before they were sanded during the rest of the construction process and the finishing. And our results have just been better, and our floors remain flatter and less movement in them. And I can see it firsthand. So it's something that I guess until you see it firsthand, it's almost you don't want to believe it because it's too good to be true. Because the problems that some guys have had with moisture, it's probably taken out a few guys' companies, I'd imagine, over the years. So before I figured it out, like what it cost us, maybe 25 cents a square foot for the product, that it is a no-brainer. Like, why would you not offer it to a customer looking for a wide plank floor and the issues that they can have already, and not insist that they get this product to protect their investment?
Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks, Adam, for relating your personal experiences with R540 over plywood. Obviously, new technology, a new way to approach moisture mitigation, really been important for his business, as we know it is for everybody's, whether you're working on a slab or plywood. So we're going to go to Q&A now. I'm going to throw the questions out at Trey. If you do have a question, you should see there's just a little icon at the bottom, Q&A. Type your question in there and we'll get it over to Trey. All right, so Trey, first question is, do the different trowels affect dry times, and how can I speed up that dry time?
So the trowels aren't gonna change dry time if you're using them correctly. If you're doing a normal spread with them, times are going to be the same across the board. Now, if you do pack in some extra adhesive into a low spot or something, that can run some dry time problems, but it's not really necessary to do that to add adhesive. The adhesive works on its own. To speed up the dry time, just mist it with a little bit of water. Like with all of our adhesives, they're all reactive with water. The water in the air, the water in the subfloor, the water everywhere. So add a little bit, it's cut your dry time in half. You're using the R51, dry time 60 minutes about right now. Spritz it with some water, mist it with some water, and now your dry time's at 30 minutes.
We got one question in here, Trey. It has to do with the different types of tests on concrete. Calcium chloride, RH probes, or a Tramex meter. What do you think is the best, and or what is recommended by NWFA?
So NWFA only recognizes two different tests: the calcium chloride test, the relative humidity test. Now, the Tramex meters or the Wagner, the pinless meters, those kind of things, they're great to kind of get a feeling what's going on in that floor, but they're not going to be recognized if you do get to a litigation situation. So the two, the calcium chloride and the relative humidity test, I always would go with the relative humidity test if you have a chance. Two different reasons. The calcium chloride test is kind of like an X-ray. It just kind of gives you an idea of what's going on with that floor. Relative humidity test actually gives you an idea of what's going on throughout the floor. So that's more like your MRI. Another reason is that a calcium chloride test takes 3 days. Relative humidity test is a 24-hour turnaround. So faster you get your results, faster you get on the floor, faster you can get the job done.
All right, good answer. Good answer. And that particular topic or subject is also one, if you look at the NWFA installation guidelines, they have a lot of information in there about, again, calcium chloride, RH probes, and the Tramex meter, and exactly what some of the parameters are, how to use those, and what their guidelines are for successful installations. Next question is about low spots in the floor and building those up. So can I use Bona adhesives to build up low spots in the subfloor?
So you really shouldn't. You probably could. It's going to mess with your dry times, things like that. But it's also going to be way more expensive than actually doing a patch. I know Wayne had talked earlier about how important subfloor prep is and things like that. So making sure your prep is done beforehand will make those situations where you don't have to spend a lot of money, extra money, packing adhesives, and wait, and messing with your dry, messing with the flexibility of the floor.
Okay. Next question then is about dry times of the adhesive. So how can I speed up the setup time or the dry time of Bona adhesive products?
So all of our adhesives you see they have an R in front of them, R851, R880, R850T. The R stands for reactive. So those adhesives react to moisture. They react to moisture in the air, the moisture in the subfloor, and you can add extra moisture if you want to speed it up. If we take R851, for instance, it's about a 60-minute dry time right now. If you need to speed that up, you can mist a little bit of water in there, stir it around. It'll start the reaction faster, set up, and now you're down to about 30 minutes. So with all of our adhesives, if adding a little bit of water will increase their cure time setup time by half.
Okay. So after I've made the dry time setup time speed up, now I've got adhesive all over my hands. What do I use to clean up the adhesives with? And will Bona adhesives tend to turn my hands black, tools black?
So one of the best things about the Bona adhesives, they are isocyanate free, which is what turns your hands black, your tools black, things like that. So don't have to worry about that. Take a rag. You don't need to use paint or any of those things. Rag it off. Kind of moisturize your hands a little bit. You can use a little bit of mineral spirits if you think you're not getting it all off, but most of the time it's just a dry rag.
Yeah, super easy clean off. This is a really good question because a lot of times guys think, if one coat's better, two is even better. If one coat, why only one coat of R540 on a wooden subfloor? Wouldn't two be better if I'm actually trying to protect against moisture coming through that plywood?
Absolutely, and that's a really important part about the R540 because you don't want two coats is going to seal it up completely. One of the things about wood is when wood has moisture in it, and you're talking about like an OSB or a plywood or an Advantech, that moisture is not going to jump from sheet to sheet and work its way out. It's going to stay in that sheet. If you put two coats over it, you've completely sealed off that wood. Moisture really has nowhere to go. And that's where you can get some rot issues on the inside. R540 still has permeability. So when you put it on there, it's still going to allow that moisture off gas and slowly seep out, but at a slow enough rate where it's not going to affect your flooring or cause any cupping or issues like that. So the perm rating allows it to evaporate and dry out, but at a slow enough rate that doesn't get you in trouble.
All right, great information. That's really good info for everybody. How about the difference in adhesive products? So the difference between urethanes and silanes.
Okay, so urethanes were great adhesives for a long time. They got us out of the stone, got us out of using, roofing tar. Silanes is just a newer technology. It's a better adhesive. Silanes are derivative of silicone. So like you put around your tub or around your sink, it's an adhesive promoter and a moisture ejector. So what it does is basically get an all-in-one where you can take care of your moisture, you can take care of your adhesive, and at advanced spread rates.
All right. Well, looking at our clock, I think that's all the time that we have for questions and answers. Trey, thanks a lot for being here. It's been great having you as a special guest as we go over this very important topic with moisture migration or mitigation. And for everybody else, thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Don't forget to catch the podcasts On the Floor with Wayne and Rob. Also, if you have any technical questions, you can always call our tech and training department at 800-872-5515. And Bona training, live training is back in session. So look for the schedule on bona.com. You can sign up for some upcoming classes. We are taking obviously some extra safety precautions there, but we know there's nothing better than live training on the floor with you guys. And we wanted to get back to that. So thanks again for joining in and have a great rest of your night.